Let us start with introduction to JTE. Before I talk what is J2E, let me tell you about the history or evolution of this J2E. So, by using core Java, we can develop server-side programming or not. Tell me, can we develop server applications by using core Java? Yes. By using socket programming, what you can do, you can make your program to listen on a port. You can develop your own server also by using core Java, right? And also you can write your own client also. If you are writing server client applications, whatever client is sending the message, the server has to understand, and whatever server is sending as response, the client has to understand. That means that there should be a common protocol between client and server, right? The commonly used protocol for transferring data in nowadays is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So what you can do is you can write a server, your own server programming by using server socket. You can make a program to listen on a port. You can write your own server programming, but the request which the server is getting, the server should be able to understand. So we can decide to use HTTP protocol. You have to write your server programming such that your server will understand HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol is so vast, it's very big. If you want to write your own server which can understand HTTP requests coming in HTTP protocol format, it will be very difficult. You have to write a lot of program. So instead of reinventing the tool, it is better to use a tool which is existing. So instead of writing your own server which can understand HTTP protocol, it is always better to use existing servers which are present in the market. So best HTTP server present in the market is Apache. Apache is a HTTP server. It can understand HTTP protocol. It can receive HTTP requests. It can understand it. It can send the response in HTTP response format. Protocol means what? Protocol means some set of rules. The rule says, whenever a client is making a request, I want the request to be in a particular format, then only I can understand. Right? Server says, whenever I am getting a request, I want a request in a particular format. And the client says, whenever I am getting a response, I want the response to be in a particular format. So protocol means what? Protocol is something which defines the rules. Or it says, whenever you are requesting, you have to follow these rules. Whenever a server is responding, server should follow these rules, right? So let us try to understand how Apache server will work first. Then slowly I will develop the concept. I will go ahead with the history. See, Apache is a server application which will be listening on one port. So Apache company has developed it. Let's assume that this is the machine on which the Apache server is running, and in any program there will be at least one thread which will be one thread, and inside Apache server there is one thread which is listening on a port. By default the port used by HTTP protocol is 80. Let's assume that I just represent the port like this. This is a thread which is listening on a port 80 by default. Now you can write any client. Let's assume that this is the client. You can write any client and make your client to establish a socket communication to this port and then send some requests. You have learnt in socket programming, once a socket communication is established, right, you can get sockets output stream for writing and sockets input stream for reading. So once socket is established, once socket connection is established, you can use that socket for reading and writing data, right? Now what you can do is you can write a HTTP client, but if you have to again write a HTTP client, again you should know the whole protocol, HTTP protocol, right? Again, writing client program is also difficult. So you don't want to write your own clients. In every machine there is a browser which knows how to send HTTP request if you just type a URL. Okay. Now to demonstrate that, let us assume that on this machine, this is a whole machine, server machine, in which server is running. Let us assume that there is a folder in C drive, C : server root. This is the root folder I am saying. Inside this there are a lot of files, HTML files, image files, MP3 files, audio, video files, everything. I want this directory to be the root directory of my server. Right. Now let's assume that inside this root directory there is another file called x.html. x.html is present. Now from my browser, in this machine I'll open a browser and type a URL like this. http : IP of the machine : port at which server is listening. By default it is 80. If the port is 80, you need not even write the port, you can just type IP/, right? But now I'll write port also, IP : port. By default port for HTTP is 80. If the server is also listening at 80, you need not type IP : port, you can just type IP only. Okay, IP : port / I'll say x.html. Now by opening the browser on this client machine, I'll type a URL like this. Once I type a URL, I told browser is a HTTP client. It knows how to make HTTP requests once you type a URL. Now what the browser will do is, it will open a socket communication. Browser is also a process. Do you agree or not? Yes, browser is also a process. If you go to the task manager and see, for browser also there is a process started. So in any process there will be at least one thread. The main thread will be there. So if I have opened browser here, that thread, what it will do is, this is a thread, assume it will open a socket communication. See, assume that this is the port at which the browser is listening, and what it will do is it will open a socket communication. Okay, just it will open a socket communication. Okay. Once I type URL and press enter, it will open socket communication. Once socket communication is established, the client can send some data through this socket, but that data should be following some specific format according to HTTP protocol. Now I just give a overview of how that HTTP request looks like. See, in any HTTP request there will be three parts. In any HTTP request, there will be three parts. I'll just draw the three parts here. You need to understand how this HTTP request looks like. Okay, there are three parts in it. Once I type a URL like this, some text, socket connection is established by the browser, and you send some text like this. I divided it into three parts. First part is called as initial request line. Here again, this initial request line is divided into some parts, three parts. See, in HTTP there are various ways of requesting. By using HTTP, what we can do, we can make a request to server, right? By using HTTP protocol, we can make a request to server. Here in this case, tell me what the browser is requesting for. X.html. It is requesting. It's making a request for x.html, right? there are various ways to make a request in HTTP. The most popularly used ways are GET request and POST request. Right? What the browser can say is get a file called x.html from the server. Right? So if the browser wants to get a static file, only a file which is existing on server, it will be generally by default it will be using GET. So the first part here in the initial request line tells what is the request method. Get which file? X.html, right? X.html is present in the root directory. Root means, in Unix you represent root by using slash, right? So it will say what is the file slash x.html. Then the third part is nothing but the protocol version. See, what is the latest version of IE? Internet Explorer? 10 also got released, I think. 9, okay. Maybe okay. Let's assume 9. Suppose if I am using Windows 95, older operating system, there it was, I think, IE4, Internet Explorer 4. So Internet Explorer 4 might be following old version of the protocol. Versions in every product will be versions 1.0, 1.2, 1.1 like that, right? So IE4 might be following old version of protocol, and if I am using IE9, it might be following new version of the HTTP protocol. Right? So server needs to know by using which version of the protocol the request is coming. The third one is protocol version, by using which the browser is sending a request. So server can understand. The HTTP initial version of HTTP was HTTP/0.9. Next one was 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Now I think latest version is 1.4. So let's assume that it is 1.1 now. HTTP /1.1. Now third one is protocol version. This one, first one is what? Request method. Second one is file name. Okay, let me tell you. See, whenever you are typing this one, this is called what? Tell me. URL. What is the full form of URL? Uniform Resource Locator. And whatever is in this URL, whatever is coming after the port name, port number, what is after port number /x.html? That is called URI, Uniform Resource Identifier. Uniform Resource Identifier, right? See, by using this, by using /x.html, can't I identify a resource? Resource means a file. Can't I identify a resource uniquely on that server? Yes. So whatever is coming after port number, that can be used for identifying a resource uniquely on a particular server. What is the server? IP colon port identifies a server, right? IP colon port identifies a server application, right? For that server application, the root directory is C colon server root, right? So by using whatever is coming after the port number in the URL, whatever is coming after the port number is called URI. Why we call it? By using that URI, you will be able to identify a resource uniquely on that particular server, right? And what is URL? By using URL, Uniform Resource Locator, will you be able to identify the resource uniquely on the whole network, right? So by using URL, you will be able to identify a resource uniquely in the whole network, in the whole internet or intranet. You will be able to identify a resource uniquely by using the URL. And what is the URI? By using URI, you will be able to identify a resource. Resource means as a file or something, right? A resource uniquely on that particular server identified by IP colon port, right? Okay. Now, see, this is what /x.html is URI. First one is request method. This is request method, HTTP request method. I'll just write it here. Request method. And second one is request URI. And third one is, tell me, protocol version. Okay, good. Okay, slowly you'll understand now what I mean, what I'm doing, this protocol version. And this is the first part, right? This is the first line. Whole thing is the first line. This is the initial request line. The second part is called as header part. I'll talk about headers and what are the uses later after some time, but just understand that it is headers. And third part is nothing but body. Body. Okay, now see here. Once I type this URL on my browser, what the browser is doing, it is opening a socket connection to that IP port, and then through that it is sending some text like this. Here also some text is there. Headers means some text and body is also some text. Now I didn't write this. I'll write it slowly. Okay. So this is the request format. I said HTTP protocol. Client and server are following some protocols. When your client is sending a request, the request has to be in this format. 3 parts. First part is again divided 3 lines, and this part is headers and this part is body. So browser is internally sending a request in this format to server. I'll talk about headers and body later. By default, get method does not have any body. Okay, so you will later understanding how to make a get request and how to make a post request later. Right? Okay, by default, get request does not have a body. I'll talk about differences between get and post after some time. Now, see here, once I type this URL, my client has sent a request like this. The request will go to the server. Server also can understand this HTTP protocol. By understanding this, by seeing this request, the server understands that, oh, client is asking me to get a file called /x.html, and the client is sending me a request using a protocol version called HTTP 1.1, right? So server tries to understand this request and it will try to give the response. What the server has to give a response? The contents of the file x.html, right? So now when the server is sending a response again the response has to be in a particular format, again following HTTP response format, right? Now I'll just show you how a response format looks like very quickly. See, the response format also is divided into 3 lines. This is a response format which I am drawing now. Again, this part is a third part is nothing but the body of the response body, and what is this? This is called request body. This is request body. This is response body, and here this is again response headers. This second part is again response headers. And first part is again called as initial response line. Initial response line is again divided into 3 parts. First part is nothing but the status code. Tell me, what is the status code for file not found, if you know? 404. You might have find 404 many times, right? This is called status code. So first part of the response represents the status code. For success, it is 200. For file not found, it is 404. For some internal server error, it is 500. For redirection, it is 301. So there are various status codes which I will show you later. 200 means success. Okay, I have found the file called x.html. I am sending you the response. Server says, right? And second part is nothing but status description. The second part, status description. Generally for success, the status description will be okay. For not found, it will be file not found. Like that, for second part will be status description. And third part will be again the version of the protocol which the server is following. Server might be following a different version of protocol. Client might be following a different version of protocol, right? The third part says by using which version the response is being sent. This is the protocol version. Whatever the server version, right? So I'll just complete this diagram. This is status description. And this is protocol version of server. Okay, I'll talk about what response headers contain and what is the response body. See, now once a client gave such a request, server understood that, oh, I have to send x.html as response. So what the server will do is it will read, it will try to find, is there any such file? Slash means what? Root directory. The root directory for our server is c:server root. It will search for x.html in the root directory. If it finds, what it will do is it will read the file and send the contents of that file as part of response body. Here the third part is what? Response body. The contents of the file will be sent as response body. So this is what is happening whenever we type a URL on the browser. Simply browser is making a HTTP request, server is understanding it, server is sending a response, right? So this is in case of a normal server, right? Any doubts? This is how simply HTTP server works. Very simply, okay? But now there is a limitation of this server, HTTP server. See what the server can send as response. If there is a file which is existing already on the server, it can send the response. So means if there is some static file, a file which does not change, if there is a HTML file or JPG file or MP3 file or whatever present in the root directory of the server, then server can send that as response. Means we can say that Apache server or HTTP server can send only static response. Some static files, HTML files is static file, means the files which does not change. But in the market in around 1997, 1998, there is a requirement for dynamic content. Means the response should be given dynamically. The response should be generated on the fly dynamically and the response should be sent. But whereas here, what is the response? Some file is existing, that file content is sent as response. That is static response we say. Now the requirement is we want a dynamic response. Means the response should be generated dynamically. What do I mean by dynamic response? I'll talk with an example. Okay, let me just save it. Now I'm going to explain what do I mean by dynamic content with a simple example. Okay, this is my client, this is my server machine again, and this is my client machine. From client I want to type a URL like this: http://localhost. Localhost means IP. Okay, I will not use localhost now. IP:/port/ I want to say something like get date. I want the date on the server, right? I want to type a request like this and server should respond saying what is the time on the server, right? Now let's assume the time on server is 9:51 according to here. if I type the same URL at 9:51, I should get the response saying time is 9:51 on the server. Again, if I refresh or again if I give a request to the same URL after 5 minutes, I should get the time on server is 9:56. Right? URL is same, but response is generated dynamically. So I want such a dynamic response to be very simple. Right? That is not possible with Apache HTTP server. Because what the Apache server can do, if there is the existing file, it can just return the contents of the file, that's all. Apache cannot generate dynamic content, Apache server, right? But now the requirement is to generate dynamic content. So that is not possible with Apache server, right? What we want is, we want another program which can generate dynamic content. Tell me, Apache server is also a program or not? HTTP server is also a program? Yes, but that program knows how to generate static content. We want another program which can generate dynamic content, right? So in around 1996 around in the market, there was such a requirement to generate dynamic content. At that time, in the market, there was another program called as CGI server, Common Gateway Interface. CGI stands for Common Gateway Interface. CGI server was not written in Java, it was written in Perl. Okay. So let us try to see how CGI server can generate dynamic content. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, now see this. This first box is nothing but I am representing this as HTTP server. First box is HTTP server, and second one is nothing but CGI server. Okay. Now, when CGI server was there, let us try to see how it was used. The client will type a URL like this only, ip:/getDate, let's assume. Okay. Now what the browser will do, browser will make a socket connection. Browser will make a socket connection to the server and then send the HTTP request. Right? But the server, HTTP server will see, do I have any file with this URI? Tell me what is the URI in this URL? /getDate. /getDate is the URL. So now HTTP server looks, do I have any file with this URI on my root directory? No, right? So if HTTP server finds that there is no such URI, there is no such resource with that URI on that server, what the HTTP server will think is, oh, this is not a static request, it is a dynamic request. Then once the server, HTTP server detects that it is a dynamic request, what it will do is, again this will open a socket connection to CGI server. It will send the request to, it will forward the request to CGI server. Now CGI server, as I said, it is also a program which is listening on support, right? Now remember, client, the browser will not directly talk to CGI server. Client will always make a request to HTTP server only. HTTP server finds whether this request is static or dynamic. How does it decide whether this request is static request or dynamic request? It will try to find a resource with this /getDate. If it is not there, it will assume that it is a dynamic request. Once it finds that it is a dynamic request, it will open socket connection to CGI server and then it will forward the request to CGI server, right? Now, CGI server is a program, as I am telling now, CGI server is a program which knows how to generate dynamic content. It knows how to generate dynamic content, but it does not generate dynamic content. We have to write a program which will generate dynamic content. So what I could have done is, if I am using CGI server, what I could have done is, I could have written something like a file like date.pl. A file extending with extension .pl means it is a Perl file. So So I told CJ server is not written in Java, it's written in Perl. So you have to write a Perl file which will be having some code, a Perl code, which will return the current date on the server, right? So whenever a request called /getDate comes, CJ server should be told that you have to execute a file called date.pl, right? So in a CJ server there will be some configuration file where we will map /getDate to date.pl. /getDate is mapped to date.pl in a configuration file for CJ server, right? Like that, I can write a lot of .pl files, and for one URI I can map every URI with a Perl file, right? So now what I can do is another thing. See here, I can write something like for /x, I can make it to point to something like abc.pl. Means, what is the meaning? If the CJ server gets any request with URI /x, it has to execute abc.pl. The output of the PL file should be sent to HTTP server. HTTP server again knows how to make HTTP response format. So the response which it got from CJ server will be made in the old format. I told right how a HTTP server response should look like. Status code, OK, protocol version, response status. So now like that, HTTP server makes the HTTP response in that format and sends back to the client. So this is how earlier people were achieving dynamic content. For achieving dynamic content, they were using CGI server, and inside that CGI server they were writing Perl files. Okay. This CGI server was also called as CGI container. Most of the terms which you will be seeing in the books is CGI container. CGI container, CGI server are almost meaning the same. Some books refer it as CGI server or CGI container, both are same. Even you will be getting a more understanding about what do I mean by container. Till now I didn't use a word called container, I will use it later. Okay. CGI server is also called as CGI container, right? But again, this was a scene in around 1996. 1995, 1996. This is how people were getting dynamic response. People were able to write applications which will generate dynamic response. There was some limitation or drawback of CJ server now at that time. The drawback is whenever client makes a request, the request once it comes to CJ server has to execute this Perl file to give a response, right? To execute that Perl file, CJ server used to start a new process. Tell me, one process, can it start another process? Yes, that's called process forking, right? Yes. So whenever a request comes to CJ server, the CJ server used to fork another process, and that process used to execute the Perl file, the corresponding Perl file. The output of the Perl file is given back to HTTP server. So here what we need to understand is, for every request, a new process is generated on the operating system, on the server, right? We know that process creation is very costly. To create a process, operating system has to do a lot of things, right? So that was the limitation. For every request, it was creating a new process. Suppose if there are 1 lakh requests to the server, what will happen? 1 lakh processes will be started on the CJ server, on the server machine, right? Which is not good, right? So instead of starting a new process for every request, will it not be good if we can start a new thread for every request, right? Thread creation is lightweight. So this idea came in the market. Oh, this CJ server is not good. CJ container is not good because it is generating a new process for every request. It will be good if we can write a program which will create a new thread for every request, right? So at that time, 1996, Java was booming up and Java became slowly popular. at the time in around 1996, 1997. Java was mostly famous for multi-threaded applications, right? You can create a thread easily in Java by using a simple program. So people thought, if we can write a server in Java, then for every request, instead of writing in CGI, if you write in Java, then for every request, what we can do, instead of starting a new process, we can start a new thread. So in the market now in around 1996, 1997, there was such a requirement. We want somebody to write a server in Java, a server which can generate dynamic content in Java. So lot of vendors came. That okay, saying that okay, we will develop a server which can generate dynamic response in Java. Lot of vendors means different companies came saying that okay, we will take up the responsibility to develop a server, right? But tell me, this CJ server in this case, will it generate dynamic content or not? No, it knows how to generate dynamic content. When your request comes, it knows what file to execute because I configured it. So we say that the CJ container or the container does not generate dynamic content. It knows how to generate. Means whenever I get a request call get that, oh, I'll execute that. It knows, right? So containers are the programs which knows how to generate, but they will not generate. We have to write a file to generate the code, right? This is our program which we have to write. Is it? So now take the scenario of server in Java. Forget about CJ server. Let us assume now this is a Java server. Now I'll just remove it. Assume that now this is a Java server, right? Here what we have to do in this Java server, the URLs have to again map it to some Java files instead of Perl files. Previously it was date.pl. Now it will be date.java. Okay, just I'll remove it. Now this is a scenario. If it is a Java server, what we have to do as a developer, I have to write a program called date.java which will contain some code to generate dynamic content, right? So if a third party vendor, let's assume that if some vendor has developed a server in Java, that server knows how to generate, but it does not generate. The developer, I am responsible for writing a Java file which can be executed by this Java server, right? Is it? See now, when a vendor is developing a server, what he will do is, he will say, hey, if my Java server has to execute date.java, this date.java has to implement some interfaces, right? Or the program has to be in some particular way. So the vendors used to declare that if my Java server has to execute the code written by the developer, this Java file should implement some interfaces. The programming should be in a particular way. They will dictate some rules. Okay. So now let's assume that the company called IBM has developed, Accenture has developed their own server, IBM has developed their own server, and Apache has developed their own Java server, right? So let's assume that there are three servers in the market: Accenture server, IBM server, Apache server. Now let's assume that I am the client, I am using Accenture server. So what Accenture server did, the vendor Accenture said that if my Accenture server has to execute date.java should implement some interfaces, right? So there are some rules dictated by Accenture. If a developer follows those rules while developing this Java file, then only the server can execute it, right? So Accenture server says some rules. IBM server says, okay, if my server has to execute your program has to implement some interfaces, some rules. And Apache server says some rules. Every server vendor is saying some rules for writing the program. We are the developers. We have to understand how to write a program, right? Suppose that I learnt how to work with Accenture server. I learned because I had to learn, right? As a developer, we had to learn and do it. As a developer, I learned how to write a program which will run inside Accenture server. I wrote the program, right? But tomorrow the client said Accenture server is not good. Go for IBM server. Will it be possible? It is possible, but I had to rewrite all the existing code. I had to make this data.java to implement some other set of interfaces for IBM server, right? So my code is not portable from one server to other, from one vendor to other. I will be locked to one vendor, right? So vendor independence is not present. It will not be there if every vendor develops their own server in their own way, right? So what Java community did was, Java community said, okay, we will tell some rules to vendors and we will tell some rules to developers. So Java community has sat and wrote some rules for vendors and some rules for so now Java community has developed some rules. Set of rules is called as specification. So we say that Java's community has developed a specification. This specification says some rules to vendors, some rules to developers. So now Java community is so big. So if Java community comes up with some specification, all the other vendors will try to follow that specification, right? So now let's assume Accenture followed this specification, the rules given by Java community, and developed the server. Again, IBM also followed the same rules given by Java community, developed the server. Apache has developed the same rules and developed the server. So all the vendors have followed the same rules and developed their own server, right? And I said again, Java community has given some rules for developers also. So whenever I am developing a Java program which will run inside my Java server, I will be following the rules given by Java community, right? So same rules for all servers now. Whether it is Accenture server or IBM server or Apache server, I will be following same rules. So my program will not change even if I want to shift to some other server. Let's assume today I am using Accenture server. I wrote my Java program following the rules given by Java community. Same rules are same for other servers also, right? So my same Java program will run on IBM server or Apache server, right? So this specification which was given by Java community for vendors as well as for developers is called as servlet specification. Okay, servlet is a specification, means servlet, along with servlet specification there are some rules which Java community is giving. The rules are for vendors. Whenever a vendor is developing a server, they have to follow those rules. And the rules are for developers also. Whenever a developer is writing a Java program which can run inside our Java server, they have to follow those rules, right? This is nothing but servlet specification, and the Java program which we have to write, the developers have to write. This is the Java program which is generating dynamic content, right? This program which will generate dynamic content is following servlet specification. So that Java program is called as servlet. Java program which generates dynamic content, which follows servlet specification, and which can be executed by the server which is written in following servlet specification is called as servlet. And this server which is following servlet specification is called as servlet container. Java server. From now onwards, I will use a term called servlet container. I just delete it. So what is servlet container? The program which was developed by the vendors following servlet specification is called as servlet container. What is a servlet? Servlet is a program which can generate dynamic content and which can be executed inside a servlet container. It is called as a servlet, right? And what is servlet specification? Servlet specification is set of rules given by Java community to the developers as well as vendors. Right. Any doubts? After servlet specification was introduced, they found to generate dynamic content, people used to write a Java program for generating dynamic content, right? But tell me, on browser, what you will be seeing, HTML or not? Mostly HTML code, right? So after writing a lot of programs, experts after writing a lot of programs in Java, which will generate dynamic content, they found that the response will be generally in the form of HTML only, right? So we'll see later how to write HTML inside Java program. But in Java programs, what they used to do is they used to write HTML inside Java program, right? After writing a lot of code, they found that writing HTML inside Java program is becoming difficult because HTML means set of tags. Every opening tag should have an ending tag. Even if some mismatch is there between opening tag and ending tag, the browser will not be able to display it properly, right? So they found that there is a difficulty in writing HTML inside Java. Then they got an idea. Why should I write HTML inside Java? What if I can write Java inside HTML? So with that idea, they wrote another specification called as JSP specification. Java Server Pages. JSP stands for Java Server Pages. So JSP specification was introduced again by Java community, right? Why? Because after developing a lot of servlets, they found that writing servlet is difficult, because in servlet we have to write HTML code. HTML code inside Java was becoming difficult. I will make you to feel the difficulty once we write servlets. You will also feel that writing HTML inside servlet is difficult. After that, they introduced JSP specification, and according to JSP specification, what we can do is we can write Java code inside HTML, which was becoming, right? So like that, there was increasing requirements. See, a human being is not satisfied with what they have. They want something more. We want more. It is mange. So the requirements kept on growing. For each and every requirement, Java community has introduced another specification. So now there are a lot of specifications. Together, all these specifications we call it as J2EE. J2EE is not a separate program. It is a superset of all specifications. Server specification, JSP specification, EJB, JNDI, JDBC is also a specification in J2EE, some part of JDBC. Like that, a lot of web services specifications, a lot of specifications are there. Together we call all the specifications as J2EE, right? So J2EE is superset of all specifications, and servlet is a small part of J2EE, and JSP is a small part of J2EE. So that finishes the introduction to J2EE. And okay, latest version of J2EE is 5, and 6 also is almost coming. From Java, from the version 5, they removed J2. J2EE stands for what? Java 2 Enterprise Edition. Core Java was called as J2SC, Java 2 Standard Edition. This is called J2EE, Java 2 Enterprise Edition. So when they introduced 1.5 version of J2EE, they removed the 2, and then now they are calling as JEE simply, Java Enterprise Edition. So J2EE same as JEE, but from 1.5 version we are calling it as JEE simply. Now there is nothing called J2EE right now. It is JEE.